Hey everyone, welcome to Dad's Cinepop Culture. I got a movie review for you today. A movie called Beyond Atlantis from 1973, a Filipino-American film. Not a good movie, but a movie that had potential. Potential that, well, I think ultimately was kind of ruined by ambition. Ambition to make this a bigger movie than it needed to be. Based on a story by Stephanie Rothman, known for a lot of 70s exploitation cinema. Directed by Eddie Romero, a legend in Filipino cinema, especially famous for his Blood Island films, which there's a Kickstarter right now for, I think it's a Kickstarter for a comic book, a Blood Island sort of comic book thing. Might want to go out there and take a look, see if you can find it. Film stars Patrick Wayne, and he might be the problem with the film. Not in terms of his acting. He's actually probably one of the better actors in the movie. But he wanted a PG film. And this film had the opportunity to be a real sort of bloody horror film. Instead, it sort of turns into a sci-fi adventure, maybe a little bit like King Solomon's Mines. They said that they were aiming for Treasure of the Sierra Madre. They missed on that one. But without a good enough story to really make that work. If this movie could have leaned into the horror elements, they probably had something. Let's take a look at this thing, and I will say right from the get-go that the spoiler lamp is lit because we're going to be looking at the entire picture. Look, it's a little over 50 years old, and even though not well known, it's not like it's going to be the biggest secret in the world what's going on with this film. So let's take a look at Beyond Atlantis. We open with a small boat heading to shore, and on this boat we have a woman who we will come to know as Cyrene, played by Leigh, a woman who did a lot of TV back in the 1970s. Definite eye candy in this picture, and this picture does try to make use of a lot of eye candy. And apparently, before it was aiming for a PG rating, was going to have a bit of nudity in it, which doesn't ultimately enter into the film. And look, I'm not that kind of guy exactly, but nudity probably would have helped this movie, frankly, because it needed something that was a little more interesting than what we ultimately got. We see the title Beyond Atlantis as the ship docks. We also meet a seemingly goofy little dude named Manuel. We will come to know him as Manuel the Barracuda, played by Vic Diaz, a Filipino character actor. He unloads equipment supplies from this boat while she looks into the jungles, and for a moment we see this odd looking face in the shadows. He's finished unloading the boat, and she goes and rewards him with pearls, apparently Tuscarora pearls. He gets back on his boat, and she heads for the jungle. Yeah, see, you could see where, but no, she's kind of got a bikini thing on, but she gets rid of her outer garment and walks along the beach and into the jungles. And here we meet one of the natives. What's going on with his eyes? We'll find out later. She comes into this village gathering. Her father is there. Nereus, played by George Nader, may be most infamously known for starring in Robot Monster. I can remember back in the mid to late 80s, we had a channel in Vegas. Well, it's still here, Channel 21. But it was an independent network or station at the time, not part of a network. And it was actually a local video music channel, like MTV, but local. And they did a big thing where they were showing Robot Monster in 3D, and you had to go, I think, to Wendy's and get 3D glasses. I know, and I'm off on a tangent, but I don't care because that's how I do things here. So George Nader is her father. He is sort of the king. Now, you notice he and his daughter look a little different from all the other people in the village. There is apparently a problem these people have had with inbreeding, and that's going to come into the film later, and obviously is another aspect that could have worked well as horror fodder, but ultimately really isn't. What can you do? They have captured a person on their island, this old dude. The penalty is death. He makes a break for it and takes a spear to the back. She looks on in horror. Oh, maybe Cyrene isn't like the others. Okay. We now shift to a city. I'm guessing it's supposed to be Manila, but I don't know for certain. But obviously a real garden spot. A couple of freewheeling ladies walking down the sidewalk, the sailor checking them out as they go. Probably just a couple of perfectly nice tourists who, oh no, actually, they are prostitutes. And that is their pimp. The great Sid Haig as East Eddie, who is a thoroughly rotten person and probably the most fun character in the movie, and for a large part because of Sid Haig, who really knows how to choose some scenery and have a good time. This is him confronting his employees. He wants the money, he gets the money, and he sends them off to do more work. So we get a quick introduction to a character who is thoroughly rotten. While he and his comrades are in a bar, Manuel shows up. I know every time I say that, I think of Faulty Towers. Manuel shows up, and he shows him this pearl. And he has a plan for how they could maybe get more of them. And Sid is, maybe I should say East Eddie, is very interested. We get a little diatribe about why he's called East Eddie. It's kind of classic Sid Haig. So he has this pearl. So he gets an idea. Oh yeah, we need to try to figure out where these Tuscarora pearls are. We can make a fortune. But there's somebody he has to find. Switch scenes to a cockfight. Here's one of the things you know you're dealing with a B movie. You get a lot of scenes of the crowd at the cockfight. You only need a couple seconds here to get the establishing shot. You get a lot more than a couple seconds. You're going to get a lot of them on a boat that you don't need. You're going to get a lot of underwater scenes that you don't need. Yeah, partly they were trying to show off the women, but well, they also spent a lot of money on it and they wanted to use it, but it's a lot of padding. This could have been a much shorter film if they had wanted it to be, or maybe they could have added a little more heft to it. So he goes looking for somebody who can help get these pearls. And he finds Logan, played by John Ashley, who's also a producer of the film and almost directed it. He has a pretty long history in Hollywood. You'd see him in Beverly Hillbillies, much shorter hair. A better producer than an actor. And he's not terrible. He can get the lines out, but he's silent. He's kind of in a weird way monotone. He has a good voice, but it's kind of monotone. And it's a voice that you have almost certainly heard in the opening to the A-Team. If you can find them, maybe you can get to the A-Team. That's John Ashley, and he was a producer of that show. So hey, give him his props. So Logan is also a thoroughly rotten guy. He owes Eddie money and trying to wrangle a way to get out of it. We next go to a scene where Sid, I keep saying Sid. Why not? I'm going to say Sid because Sid is way more interesting even than Eddie, the character. Sid's getting a massage from this woman. I loved this particular look she was giving Logan. By the way, that shirt, good God, that shirt. I'd wear it. I love it, actually, if I'm honest, but it's crazy. It's the 70s. So they're going over talking about what they need to do. They need to get a guy with a boat. They need to get a guy who's a diver. Logan apparently has some diving experience, I think, as well. He's looking at those pearls. He wants that money. He needs that money. We next are in a casino. See these guys playing roulette. Our next character, Dr. Catherine Vernon, played by Lenore Stevens, also kind of a monotone actress. It's just every line is kind of, there's no fluctuation. There's not a lot of emotion put into anything. There are some scenes that are a little painful between her and Ashley because it's just two kind of monotones working with each other. But, it's okay. I mean, she doesn't do a terrible job. The acting in the movie is never like just absolutely horrendous. It's just kind of meh. Wayne's pretty good. Haig, charismatic and fun. He's just a character you really shouldn't like. But so she's at the bar and getting the eye of Patrick Wayne, of course, the son of John Duke Wayne, playing Vic Mathias, this, I think, ex-Navy diver. He's also wearing a really interesting 70s shirt. It's fantastic. First part of the movie is it's all for the fashion because it's just amazing. It's terrible and wonderful all at the same time. He's at the bar kind of catching her eye, but also we have Logan there who orders drinks for both of them, and he wants to pitch his idea to Vic. Shows him the pearl. Now she overhears this, and she's interested as well in those pearls, but for a different reason. Here's one of the brief scenes between the two actors, which turns into a raid, and everybody's running away, and he's supposed to meet her the next day at the museum, which he does. And they talk about it, and she shows off this headdress that's supposed to have Greek influences. What could that mean? And she wants to go along on this expedition, and he wants something different, so he agrees. And the next day, they're showing up at the boat, Vic's boat, to go off on this expedition. And they're kind of like, who's the woman? What's going on? It gets straightened out. They leave, and we get a somewhat long montage of everybody on a boat. More padding. They finally get to the home of Manuel and figure out where he is. And then Sig, oh my goodness. And then Sid gently gets information out of Manuel about where to find this island. Poor little Manuel. Of course, you see Lenore back there. I'm sorry, Dr. Catherine Vernon, kind of horrified, but this is who East Eddie is, and this is what East Eddie does, and East Eddie wants that money. We get another, not as long sea voyage, interposed with a map, kind of Indiana Jonesy, right? And we finally find this island that has, I guess, maybe these reefs where these pearls are to be found. So having found the island, Catherine is taking pictures. She's like an anthropologist, maybe a little archaeologist in there mixed in as well. She's taking photos. She notices this statue in this hut because they see this village that looks abandoned. And she's like, it looks like a mermaid. It has Greek influences. What could this mean? So they're kind of scanning around the island. Well, we're going to stay. Sid's over the top, but it's like, thank God, because if he wasn't, this movie would just be really boring. I will say this, though. It is actually a pretty well shot film. A few of the shots are really, really nice in this. So there, Eddie Romero did a good job directing in that regard, for sure. And so we now cut to an underwater scene. Boy, are we going to cut to an underwater scene. When you go underwater in this movie, hold your breath because you're going to be under there for a while. And we're going to see people cavorting around, but we're also going to see our divers going in for the first time. While they're going in for the first time, these folks are looking around this village, and Eddie ends up falling into this pit, and there's crabs in there, and they're all over him, and they're biting him. Well, not biting, but, pinching him. And he's bleeding, and he's freaking out, get me out of there. And they get him out, and he goes nuts. He starts shooting into the pit, and then he kind of collapses, and his eyes roll up a little bit while the doctor works on him. So while the divers are under there, they're amazed to see people. And you could see from the looks on their faces, they're amazed, they're shocked. And she kind of blows him a kiss. And so they meet her again on the shore and are talking to her and finding out who she is and why is she there. And this is her island. Why are you here? We're here for pearls, etc. And she's a little worried about them because we've obviously seen an intruder killed, and she clearly wasn't really happy with it. There might be other reasons, though. Eddie and the crew show up as well. You see him with his bandages from the crab attack. Isn't that one of those old men's magazines? I know there's the one about being savaged by weasels, but I think there's also one about being savaged by crabs. This movie is almost the equivalent of a 70s or 60s men's adventure magazine. And so they're talking to her, and she kind of looks off in the distance, and then we start seeing people appearing out of the water and people coming up from behind them, and they are surrounded. This is the inflection point of this film. From this point, if they'd leaned into the horror aspect, if they could have gone for an R rating, and the 70s R was R, I think they could have had a pretty entertaining film, an exploitation kind of film that would have been bloody. It would have probably involved them being hunted down on the island by these weird bug-eyed people. But they don't lean into that, unfortunately. They meet the king, Nereus, and the one thing that popped into my mind about these Atlanteans with the bug eyes was Namor, the Submariner. What if Marvel had given him googly eyes? We'll never know, unfortunately. So they while they're talking, one of the Atlanteans goes out and cuts the anchor rope for the boat. And so the mate is going to go out and spend the night on the boat because Vic doesn't exactly trust this situation. He swims out there, he finds the cut rope, and is set upon by the Atlanteans. And he is buried the next day. Now, the idea is that he supposedly was cut up on the reef. There was maybe a problem down there. I don't know that they wouldn't have been able to figure out the stab wounds that he had, but apparently they don't. But Vic is a little, apprehensive. He doesn't quite trust what's going on here. We next see Cyrene, and boy, are you going to see Cyrene. Again, it's an underwater scene, and, look, you get violence, you don't get horror, but you also get sex in the movie. I mean, not sex, but you get, you get exploitative stuff, and you get a fair amount of it. And, 13 to 16-year-old boys will probably love this film, but you get a lot of that. But she's out there sort of seeding the reef with pearls. They don't want to show these people where the actual bed of pearls is. But they know if these people don't get pearls, they're never going to leave. But there might be something else they're up to. So the next day, Logan and Vic go down with Cyrene and looking for the pearls. And while they do, Catherine goes into the jungles to explore a little bit. Remember, she's like an anthropologist. And she sees one of the Atlanteans, and he's holding a lamb. And she tries to communicate with him. He's uncommunicative, and then throws the lamb into this little lagoon full of piranha. Okay, so we do get an element of horror here. At a minimum, you see that these are not nice people, and she's horrified runs away. Meanwhile, Vic and Logan show up. They've got pearls, and Eddie is happy. Oh boy, is he ever happy. Meanwhile, Catherine, still exploring, finds this sort of a temple meeting place. This is where that old guy was killed. She wanders in, but she sees that mask, same as in the museum, on the this sort of an altar, and kind of gives her a little wink. And so she goes in. You can see there's a guard back there, but they let her in. She approaches the mask, studying it, and starts to touch it when Nereus shows up. No, do not touch that. She's startled. And that dude wants to kill her. And Nereus is like, no, back off. So now these guys are talking about, look, we got a bunch of pearls today. Wayne is he wants to get out of here. He's happy with what they got. The other two are like, no way, we're going to fill this box up with pearls, and then you can leave. But he says, look, when we get up to this line, I'm out of here, and it's my boat. You guys can stay if you want. We get a little scene. God, this reminded me of coffee commercials from the 1970s, where they'd be like out camping, and Folgers in your cup. But anyways, we get a nice little scene between these two. They're starting to connect a little bit. It looks like he's doing the Burt Reynolds Playgirl spread there. Hey, eye candy for the guys, but little eye candy for the ladies too. It's fair. The next day, they're back out diving with Cyrene. And then we see her at this gathering where she's being instructed, basically, that you need to have child with Vic, just for our bloodline, because they're an inbred group. And, she kind of likes Vic, but it's a little, but she knows how violent her people could be, so she's going to go along with it. That night, while Vic's sleeping, she's looking at him, and, he kind of wakes up like, whoa, what the hell? And she runs off. The next morning, you have this scene between Vic and Catherine, which is just fraught with emotion. Well, it would be if the people involved were more emotive. But they kiss and look into one another's eyes and head off into the water to take a swim and maybe something else. And while they're out there, they are spied upon by Cyrene, who, did have a little thing for Vic, feels weird about the whole thing, but she knows now she has competition, and she fears what will happen if she doesn't do what is demanded of her. And she has reason to fear, because the sort of weird googly-eyed Atlanteans give her a smack, and her father's not real supportive at that point either. And so she's really under pressure here. The next day, she takes Vic down into the water and leads him to a place where she sort of, gets a little frisky, and they cover him with this pearl net where he apparently kind of like blacks out and stuff. And so you get the feeling that a deed has been done. So he wakes up the next day on the beach, with Catherine trying to wake him up and all that. And he's like, what the hell? What happened? They got all these pearls. They're going like, dude, it's probably time for us, to get out of here, because it's getting a little more dangerous. Catherine, back at the Piranha pit, sees this sort of pearl. I don't think it's not the same net, but it's something similar. And when she touches it, it's a trap, and she is suspended over the Piranha pit. Here's one of the problems with the show, is that it's just kind of like event. Why couldn't she touch the mask? There should be a payoff there. Or we should be getting into this sort of, we're being hunted down by these people, and there's the horror element. And it's really kind of just, and then this happened, and then this happened, and then this happened. But they hear the screams, they run in, they rig up these ropes so that Vic can save her, because he's the hero of the piece. And they're like, dude, okay, like that was on purpose. This is screwed up. What are we going to do about this? And then Manuel shows up. And now you find out why he's called the Barracuda, because he has hidden their boat and they can't get off the island without him. And he wants pearls too. Hey, look, East Eddie beat the crap out of him. And I guess you can't blame the guy. So what are we going to do? Well, we got to get off this island though, because these people are dangerous. So Eddie and Catherine go back into that little temple gathering thing. And, he's rigging it up. They're on the beach. He's rigging it with dynamite. They get a little bit off. They blow the thing up. The Atlanteans attack. Hey, that was a Marvel series at one point. Atlantis attacks. Dude, Haig looks awesome in a couple of these different scenes. Great poses. You're going, he could have maybe been an action hero, this guy. But these bug-eye dudes are attacking. They're throwing spears. They're killing a few people. This guy buys it right after he gets a shot off. There's Haig doing some more daring do as these guys attack him. They're hunkered down on the beach. And Wayne ends up going into Vic ends up going into the jungle and tangling with this guy around the Piranha pit. It's not a well choreographed fight. The dude falls into I say pit, I guess lagoon, into the pond, whatever, with the piranhas, at which point Vic is horrified. I was hoping personally that we were going to get something like The Toy, where the dude was going to like run on the water to... You ever watch The Toy, Richard Pryor? Dude, watch The Toy. It's freaking hilarious. But what we do see is a bloody hand coming up out of the water. And then Cyrene sees Catherine. She's gotten separated from Eddie and attacks her. She's going to try to kill her, and they wrestle underwater. Yeah, it's that kind of movie, but it is actually a pretty intense fight scene. And ultimately, Catherine strangles her with these pearls. And Nereus arrives to find his daughter dead. Now look, she's the only one who can produce young. With her gone, it's basically doomsday for these remaining Atlanteans. And Catherine's horrified that she had to kill somebody. You know, it's actually a pretty well done scene overall. He arrives to, his daughter and covers her with, almost looked like it was going to be a golden fleece. I wondered if he was going to bring her back somehow. Didn't happen. Meanwhile, the temple burns down. The Atlanteans have been destroyed. Man, it wasn't though, like this could have been a bigger action thing, a last stand with them having to find some clever way to escape. It could have again been the horror thing where they have to wait till dawn and then they just didn't do anything like that. And it's sad because I think, again, the potential was there for this to be a much better movie than it ultimately was. The next day, we get this sort of funeral procession. He's comforting her on the beach. So they've covered Cyrene with that pearl net. And when Logan sees it, it's very similar to Daffy seeing the cave of jewels and gold in Alibaba Bunny. He runs over with his gun. Well, he's saying he's going to, and Wayne's like, dude, don't do it. And Eddie's kind of like, leave him alone. Runs over there with his gun, essentially mugs a funeral procession. I shouldn't be laughing, but at this point, what else can you do? Vic runs over, knocks the dude down, but Eddie's got his gun on him, like, leave him alone, because, hey, this is business, man. That's a lot of money. He's holding it like his blankie. The Atlanteans walk into the waves, never to be seen again. They get on their boat. They're bushed. They fall asleep. He awakens to Manuel holding a gun on him. They're going to take all the pearls, but there's a distraction and a brief little fight scene Again, not really well choreographed. And I know Wayne could have done better, I think, if the choreography had been better. But in the middle of the fight, the box is thrown overboard with all the pearls in it. And I guess presumably that pearl blanket, it wouldn't have fit in that box. Do they still have that? They seem not to. Logan dives in and can't find it. He comes up out of the water and he's going, okay, look, if we can mark the spot, it's got to be on this reef down here. We could all come back. We could get the thing. And everybody starts like laughing because they're like, dude, we're just lucky to be alive. It's so weird. Like, you got a movie with, I don't know, a pimp and destruction of an ancient civilization. I mean, in a way, you know, Vic is kind of sexually assaulted by this woman. There's so much wrong with this film, and we end with laughter. Laughter's better than tears. Okay. Here's the thing. Beyond Atlantis is not a good movie, and I don't even know that it has what could rise to being a B film. I mean, a cult film. They either needed to go action, adventure, or horror. They messed around with both a little bit. They were trying to get that PG rating. I think they would have been better off getting somebody other than Patrick Wayne. Although, again, he's one of the better parts of the film, but that PG rating probably really hurt the movie when you get right down to it. In fact, without it, it probably would have been so gory that I probably wouldn't have ended up watching it. I might have turned it off somewhere in the middle because I'm just not a big fan of gore. But that really kind of hurts the film in a way. If it was going to be an action adventure thing, it needed to be better choreographed in terms of the fights, and it needed to have a more climactic final battle between the Atlanteans and these mercenaries, basically. And it doesn't even really get that. It's kind of a mess, but Eddie Romero does a beautiful job with the photography on the picture. It looks really good quite often. You get some absolutely amazing 70s fashion. My brain says this is a terrible movie. My heart kind of liked it in a weird way. I don't know. Enough so that I said, I'm going to do a review of this thing. And so I have. What say you, the audience? Any fans out there of Beyond Atlantis? Let me know why. Let me know what you like. Look, it was heavily padded. You could have been a much shorter film. So that's a real problem. The story's kind of a mess. It works, but it's very linear. Doesn't have the twists and turns it needs. God, I think the potential was there for something better. But if it's one of your faves, let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. If you enjoyed this little review, please give a like, maybe think of subscribing, sharing with a friend. Until next time, though, God bless everybody. Please be kind to one another. Have a little bit of fun. And I will see you again, hopefully soon, in Dad's Den of Pop Culture. Bye-bye.